Hey everyone, Lou Rosenfeld, and you are listening to the Rosenfeld Review. I have a special guest today, Jay Bustamante. Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Jay has a great topic that's on so many people's minds. It's really shall we say, a melange of topics, the intersection of design, operations, AI, and ethics. Jay's a design ops leader and experience strategist at VMware. Bunch of great people at VMware, Jay. I know we touched base on Red Dolan already. You have to say hi to him next time you talk with him. Always a bunch of good things coming out of there, and really strong organization from my outside perch in terms of design operations. Before we get into your journey to VMware and doing design ops there and how that's sort of taking you to this topic of AI and the ethics around it and what design ops role is in it, I should say to everyone listening that Jay is one of the speakers at this October's DesignOps Summit. That's going to be October 2nd through 4th. It's going to be virtual. If you listen to my podcast, you know I say this every time, but geez, I really mean it. Our virtual conferences are really enjoyable and engaging in ways that virtual conferences typically are not. And this is the Design Ops conference on the calendar. This is, if you're a Design Ops person and you haven't made your Hodge yet, this is it. So come join us October 2nd through 4th, and you're going to get to hear from some great people, including Jay. So Jay's going to give us a little preview. But Jay, your journey. You got into design ops, let's see, it seems like people have some weird paths, like, they started in theater and that somehow took them to design ops, or radiology. What's your journey?
Yeah, mine isn't quite as extreme as radiology or theater, but um, I did go to school for creative writing, kind of taught myself the design aspect of things, and then cut my teeth at like a press shop when I was real young. I mean, they're almost not existent
Can
anymore.
you say what a press shop is for the uninitiated youngsters on this podcast?
So back before there used to be so many online, it was before online presence was even a thing. I worked at a shop where jobs would come in when people needed things printed out, and we would create the artwork, actually manually make sure and check that uh it was the way that it needed to be, and
Mm-hmm.
then ran gigantic press jobs. So that feels like a million years ago, and I feel like a dinosaur.
Got
Even
news for you,
about that.
Jay. It actually was a million years ago. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So anyway, it's a pretty wavy line. And my career's taken me through everything from like uh, design, digital design to every kind of print design that you can think of. I've always been passionate about not wasting my time on things. So I think that's kind of how my side door into ops happened. I always created really tight processes around how I did things or how things were checked and that sort of thing everywhere that I've worked. So before I knew that design ops was actually an actual career path or maybe even existed in a formal way, I always believed in really strong processes, which kind of, one thing led to another, and I'm doing it at VMware now. So
well, let me ask you something about those tight processes that you've been creating for yourself and now for others for years and years. I'm curious as to what's your palette of tools you use to manage those processes and maybe even to design them.
Well, the my initial palette started out of necessity, and it was just based on the tools that were available to me. And where I was working at the time, we were a Jira shop,
Mm-hmm.
so Jira became my number one way of managing everything. And I know that people get a little bit of an allergic reaction sometimes to Jira, um, as I still kind of tout it around VMware myself. But I've found that Kanban boards and open transparency are amazing for getting what you need and for informing people without having meetings. So that's kind of the roots of where I've started all this out.
Well, that's great. And I will put in a plug. We have a workshop attached to the Design Ops Summit, one of six, by Farid Sabatov and Daphne Bourne on using Jira in a Design Ops setting.
Fantastic.
Yes, everyone should take that. So you make it into VMware. You're now a Design Ops person. How long you been doing that work at VMware?
Well, what's funny is I was actually brought into VMware to do the strategy work.
Mm.
But in the org that I landed in, I realized that there wasn't a design ops presence within that org. So I just started doing the job of design ops, started capturing all the questions that I was asking coming in from being somebody who likes to have a really tight process. I realized those things didn't exist. So I just started creating those artifacts for all of us to use. Um, and that kind of led to, an unofficial slash official, design ops lead role, as well as UX strategy.
Did you know it was called Design Ops when you just started filling that gap?
I did not. I didn't actually. I started Googling more recently, and when I say recently, within the last year or two, I started Googling like kind of the things that I was doing, and I saw this term design ops come up a bit, and then I actually joined the design ops assembly, which is where
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much about the like not normalizing, but formalizing the things that I was already doing, plus learning so much about how other people had done things. And I've found that as a plug, Design Ops Assembly is fantastic.
Well, Meredith Baxter Black's ears are burning right now, as they probably do many times a day for this reason. Well, so okay, so you were a gap filler. You saw a need. You didn't even know it was called, and yet you filled it. And I do think that's like the hallmark of a lot of people in our industry. It's why we're here in many cases. Is we felt the call of something we couldn't name, and we're willing to jump in and figure it out. So good on you. But now you're figuring out something new and adjacent, which is how design ops people maybe maybe the right word, I don't know if it's harness AI, but deal with AI, figure it out in a design ops context in an ethical way. And I wonder, like, I know that's your talk in a sense. Uh, is it, are we going to be having the same conversation in 10 years? I'm wondering.
Well, I think the conversations are going to kind of evolve personally. So what I what's kind of really put this on my radar is as soon as I saw like the influx, like this is going to be a really big year for AI. I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of tried to read a bunch of different tech things and get notifications on that. My first thought was we don't have processes in place for implementing any of these AIs. Like, and with that comes the whole conversation around what are we feeding
Mm-hmm.
the AI? So the term that I read over and over and over again is bad in equals bad out.
Mm-hmm.
So if that information, that bad information, or the information's incomplete, or we just don't know, like just a really little side note here, like very early on in and I call them conversations, my conversations with Chat GPT, I asked the question, if I were to implement you into my business, what are the what do I absolutely need to get right? The very first answer it gave four or five answers, but the very first answer it gave is having the an appropriate use case for the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell that that was going to be just that little tiny, just that sentence right there was going to be a problem, because right now everybody thinks AI and a customer or user goes, "Oh, you've implemented AI, all my problems are solved." But in truth, all it really leads to is a lot of frustration on the user's end because it's not doing, nobody's asked the user what they would use AI for.
Hmm.
So it goes back to like the whole circle of life of the design ops needs to be in here at the very beginning, be proactive in any kind of AI implementation to ensure that the user is first and foremost. And anyway, I know that I listed a whole bunch of different things there, but
Well, yeah, I mean, so first of all, I guess one question I would have is um, the answer may depend on theory versus reality, but are design ops people the ones who should be getting out in front and before anyone else even starts saying, how are we going to use AI, should you be the ones asking the question and directing the effort, or is it more of a reactive thing?
well, I think that companies or businesses are under tremendous pressure to release, or they're putting tremendous pressure on their teams to integrate AI
Hmm.
in some
Hmm.
form or another, be it generative or some sort of smart things that are happening in the background. So I think what ends up happening is engineering teams have a really good idea of what they feel like the AI will be able to do or help. So that age old, you know, where does research fit in here? Who's asking the questions? And then the added complexity of who's checking the data, because there's so much stuff that happens when it's not clean data.
Hmm.
Um, and the byproduct of it, I mean, there are so many examples, and not just by like little companies or like one-off things here and there. There are examples by, industry giants like Amazon where, mitigating some bias up front would have saved them, a bit of PR and heartache. No, I don't know if it's
Sure.
heartache. There's heartache in there too, but it also just alienation of their brand and stuff like that as well.
Can you, without maybe naming names, or if you want to name names, can you tell us a story about a situation where things did go off the rails because of the lack of questions being asked up front?
Yeah, since I already teased Amazon, I can use
Hmm.
their example here. So this was a little while back, and I'll preface this story by saying they've come an awful long way since this. But there was a time where Amazon wanted to automate their hiring process, basically.
Hmm.
So they ideally they wanted to just create this engine where, hey, I'm going to give you 100 resumes here, and you're going to spit out the top five, and we're going to hire those people. And in theory, that sounds like, hey, that's a great concept. If we could do that, we could eliminate so much of XYZ, right? So what ended up happening though is they started feeding um, the AI information. The information they were feeding it was basically their own hiring practices over a 10-year period. But during that time, and also the industry itself is super skewed towards male engineers.
Mm.
So what ended up happening is because there was no bias mitigation, or the correct bias mitigation wasn't put into place, the AI started to learn, oh, you prefer hiring males. You prefer hiring people who say things like executed or captured or things like that that typically end up in like male engineer resumes. So it automatically started to bias against candidates that said things like that use the term women's,
Hmm.
also like women's chess champion or women's tennis, captain or whatever. And it also penalized graduates from like all women colleges and stuff like that. So um, although Amazon has, they stopped that when they kind of realized they looked here and they were like, this is not good. They stopped it. There was a small period of time there where the recruiters were looking at the recommendations and not solely relying on it, but going, oh, well, let's take a look at these candidates, not necessarily looking at who was discarded or who wasn't brought to the top, or asking the questions of why these people. And a lot of the times it's hard to do that, to go back and ask the AI why these things if it's not something it's been trained to do, to answer those types of questions. So
So
But yeah,
there's a lot of self reinforcement of existing biases, obviously, and
or-
I mean that's one of the scariest things about relying certainly on LLMs. I want to dig a little bit more into understanding the nuances of the data, as you know you're mentioning that we want to feed the right data in, as well as have a good use case from the very get go. That's a lot of meat to dig into. Let's do that after the break. We're going to take a quick one. We'll be right back. Everyone, you are listening to the Rosenfeld Review. Hey, it's Lou, and I am here to tell you that we have another conference coming up. And this one is the biggest one that we do all year. It's the DesignOps Summit. It's taking place virtually October 2nd through 6th, 2023. You're going to want to be part of it. Even if you're not a design ops practitioner, you might be without realizing it. Certainly, if you're a design manager, design program manager, design leader, or someone who works with things like research repositories, design systems, I think you probably are doing something related to design operations. And we have just launched the program. You're going to want to check it out. It is en fuego. Hope to see you October 2nd through 6th at the DesignOps Summit. Welcome back to the Rosenfeld Review. Lou Rosenfeld talking with Jay Bustamante, Design Ops leader at VMware, speaker at October's DesignOps Summit. We are talking about Design Ops' role in sort of making sure that we're considering the ethical implications of AI in our organizations as designers. And we were just digging into a couple areas, Jay. One was, the Design Ops professional's role in helping think through and make sure there's a reasonable use case for the use of AI, as well as the making sure that it's not a garbage in, garbage out situation, that we're actually ensuring that the data that's feeding these, and probably primarily LLMs, is actually not creating bigger problems down the road. So let's first talk about the use case issue. Are use cases even being developed for the use of some of these tools? Are you finding that you have to come up with them, or you are testing ones that are being brought to you? Do you have to insert yourself into a conversation that they don't normally think to even invite you to?
so the answer to that is yes.
Of course.
It's yes. I would say that, and one of my firm beliefs is to being proactive is ultimately always better than being reactive to anything. Been trying to simultaneously develop processes that include these things early on, so that we can get out in front of it, make sure that we're able to tap the right people to go do the research to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
we come back with the right solutions, or the right solution for the AI to jump in and help. But that said, I mean, reactive is a lot of our real life day to day of what's happening. So it's trying to kind of uh, not necessarily shoehorn, but kind of, wiggle what we do know, what we don't know, and that sort of thing. And again, against that time and pressure to release something, to get something out there. But yeah, it definitely is. It's a yes to that
Are there
question.
use cases or just situations in general that where that AI is being considered that raise red flags for you right away?
Um, yeah, we have some definitely like colleague facing things that there's not 100%. Like there's an intense desire to include AI, but without a real study done on what is the most impactful need. Uh, and I think that to me that raises flags, is simply because without that, what is the AI even doing? What is it doing there? And then also the training side of so the other side of that, of the training those users of what are the capabilities? How do I talk to this AI? What is this AI doing? What can I reasonably expect to get from the AI? Because none of these things are, I don't think any of these things are being considered up front.
Hmm.
So what ends up happening is, some sort of release is going to happen and go, hey, we're so excited to introduce XYZ to you, and you can start using it immediately. Here's a little training video, or here's a little video of how it works. But without having that conversation, like start at the beginning, there may be plenty of users who are like, that's great, but that doesn't really affect what I actually need this for. Or the opposite, they hear AI and then they just tune out and immediately they start thinking of all the possibilities and they get in there and they're frustrated because it's not necessarily doing what they expect it to.
In
Uh,
both cases, it sounds like your role and maybe design's role in general is to slow things down.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It always seems like we play the villain card in that of like
Hmm.
everybody's on board with getting this out fast. Why are you asking questions now? Type of thing. And it's a matter of where we're being brought into the process, right? So if design is being brought in an execution stage, no one's happy about the questions that design's asking at that point because
Well,
like,
and let's face it, I mean, what we take for granted in design is not necessarily what a lot of other people are thinking about. For example, I was just at a product management conference not long ago, and the keynoter recommended that people move fast and break things. It's 2023, folks, and really, I thought that was pretty shocking. So, it only left me with the feeling like, yes, we have to be that villain or that skeptic or whatever, because arguably the world's depending on it. But let's also talk about the data side. Now, you mentioned earlier the need to be careful about feeding data into these AI systems, because the bias implicit in that data will then be reinforced by what the system advises the user. Let's like, what does it mean to feed better data or the right data? And are you talking about statistical data? Are you talking about like more semantically rich data that reflects opinion and experience, or something else altogether?
well, I think it's a combination of all those things. And honestly, I feel like our role in for design ops is to make sure that the right people are invited to the conversation. So when we're measuring against that use case, we can ask the right questions of that data to ensure that, hey, if our user was looking for the capability of viewing, XYZ and comparing that data against previous or others more successful sales or whatever that is, but that's not the kind of data that we've fed the AI, it's just gonna lead to kind of frustrated users or
Hmm.
frustrated customers, right? So ensuring that there are data scientists, that there are machine learning experts, that there are engineers, plus people from the business, so all of the voices are being heard, so we can those conversations can be had very early on in the process, and everybody who has a say is at the same table having the same conversation, kind of moving along together as the process kind of goes forward.
And as you were describing all the different people that need to be at the table, I'm thinking, what about the people from humanities? And then I remembered that you've got a creative writing background, so I'm really glad you're there at VMware. But I think we need more people like you to kind of counterbalance the completely technical bent of a lot of the groups of decision makers in a lot of these settings. And really, my takeaway from a lot of what you're talking about is that a design ops person, and tell me if I'm getting it wrong, but a design ops professional should really be proactively looking for situations where AI is being considered, or maybe hasn't even been considered yet, and maybe try to identify the more appropriate settings or appropriate use cases, to question the use cases from both ethical and, well, it's really the same thing, but user-centered perspective. And then make sure that the right people are involved with feeding the right information to these systems, not just the right information, but maybe questioning. Like, I guess another question I have, and it just shows my lack of knowledge of LLMs at least, is do you see getting that team of people together to just do the initial feeding of a system with data, or does it go beyond that to the training?
Yeah, I think that there's kind of a holistic view of where you want to go with the entire solution. Whatever that AI solution is, there has to be a holistic view of where it's going. I think it's important for all of these different players to have and share that same goal together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has to align with the users. So making it user-centric, having research that's a part, not only a part of that, but is advocating for what they know about the user as well. But as you pointed out too, like from the humanities perspective of it, I think that there needs to be a strategist that's also a part of this process, who's in there also advocating for the users. And there need to be all of these different people. We all want to arrive at the same place. So you want to generate milestones to make sure that you're getting there together along the way. And I think that all of those people need to be involved to make sure that their personal check marks are being ticked off as you go.
Well, Jay, that sounds like a very different conception of what DesignOps is about than, just managing a design system or research repository.
Yeah, I like to think of us DesignOps folks as a lot more integrated into the whole team's facilitators and making sure that these things are happening, that the right people are involved at the table, that sort of thing too. Like I said, since I didn't know that this was even a thing that existed, this is just kind of what I always ran around and did, and just went like, engineering, I need you to come get into this conversation. And business, you need to be here as well, because we all need to hear each other and we all need to understand what we need together, because if not, we're going to run into tech debt later and all that other stuff that kind of flows out of that.
Tech debt, brand debt, ethics debt, you name it.
Everything.
Well, they're very lucky to have you there to squash debt as much as possible. Hey, Jay, we're going to have to wrap it up, but before we do so, I'd love to know what gift or gifts you brought our listeners. What should they know about?
Sure, yeah. So with regards to all this data that we've been talking about, there's a couple of really great resources out there, and they're open source things that you can start to look at today to kind of start plugging in to do like fairness checks, that sort of thing within the data that you're getting. And it'll actually help you try to mitigate some of that as well. And one of them is called AI Fairness 360. And it was created by IBM. And the other is called FairKit, FAIR Kit, KIT, Learn. And that one's a Python toolkit. But the two of them together are really great starting points for looking at the data that you already have, that you've already fed to the AIs, that sort of thing too, for checking for those biases and ensuring that you're going to the destination of where you want to get to.
Well, that's certainly an appropriate pair of gifts for people who've joined us today and listened in. And I know I learned a lot, and I really am looking forward to your talk at the DesignOps Summit in October. Jay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. We'll see you in October. Thanks for listening to the Rosenfeld Review, brought to you by Rosenfeld Media. If you like our show, please subscribe and review it on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast platform. I'd love it if you tell a friend to have a listen, and check out our website for over 100 podcasts with other interesting people. You'll find them all at rosenfeldreview.com.